Alright guys, so this is me. You guys met John, and this is our friend Adam. Also was like lame and at camp this week. This is us at the premiere of The Last Airbender. Like this photo, Austin won't be joining us today. He was probably being lame and at camp. This is quite possibly one of the most generally disliked movies ever created, and as a result, much of what is needed to be said has been said. Much. I could focus on and complain about a lot in this film, you know, like the pronunciations, the firebending mechanics, sequence dance numbers, overuse of slow motion, turn-based fighting, the cinematography, drill hats, confusing tone, bending to fighting ratio, casting race, this test, drill hats, this guy, ponytails, Oppa in his small mouth, this green screen, and I don't know, drill hats? But in the end, fixing all those won't make this a more engaging film. So as always, we look to story. The thing that gets me with this movie is that we have to look at this movie through the lens of what we know about the show to make sense of any of it, to even remotely justify any of it. Which is weird to me. Can I just ask, why did this movie get made? It doesn't make sense. Avatar: The Last Airbender is a story told through animation. The Last Airbender is a retelling of that story in live action. Changing animation to live action doesn't change how I experience a story. A book made into a movie? That makes sense. A comic made into a movie? That makes sense. How I experience a story in a book is different than how I experience a story in a moving picture. The overly simplified difference is you read it, you have to imagine it. And in motion picture, I see it and I watch it in real time. But that's the thing, I experience the series in a real-time visual medium. I experience this movie in a real-time visual medium. The only thing that changes is the style. What if I told you someone was remaking this entire series, same story, same dialogue, but doing it in CG animation? Does that not seem silly? You already experienced this story once in the medium it was intended for, so anything outside of that becomes fan art. It's essentially like drawing Ferb as an anime character, which, I mean, there's clearly a market for, but this is where everything gets jumbled. Since the budget was enormous, they released this in real-life theaters and had ILM do the effects. This is like a real movie or something. But so much of this movie relies on you already knowing the characters and events of the show. Monkey Atsu's necklace has emotional baggage that you only feel in the show. The movie tells us Aang sorta cared about this guy, but we don't know him. Hey, why do his tattoos and eyes glow? Huh, right, Avatar State. Explained in the show. Where on earth is Aang? Oh, right, the spirit world. That was explained in the show. Remember that one time with Ko, and it was terrifying? Have I made my point? Like, what am I supposed to take into this movie? It's not a sequel, it doesn't expand on the world, it just tries to stick to the general story, characters, and exposition of the series. But is seeing the show a prerequisite for seeing the movie? So from the get-go, this movie is asking more from the audience who hasn't seen the series knows, and isn't offering anything new outside of a differing visual style to the ones who are familiar with the series. So the non-fans are lost, and the already fans are bored. Not a good start, Em. Not a good start. But blatant complaining aside, there was an attempt at telling a story. To us, character is the vehicle that makes us care and emotionally engage with the story. And to be fair, I could make an argument pointing to specific scenes showing why we care about Aang's deep and appealing struggle to overcome the pressures and fears of being the Avatar, always shown while waterbending, and then mentioning that his journey continually shows him people who are suffering because of his absence and that they need him. Which all leads to a rewarding payoff when he unleashes his power of the Avatar to waterbend the ocean as a visual metaphor showing that he has overcome his fear, and then this bow in the end satisfies this bow he ran away from, showing us that he has now accepted his role as the Avatar. I could support that argument. But that argument would be similar to many comments I get daily explaining to me why Frozen is an emotionally engaging film. Shots fired. Saying what a movie intended doesn't make it good. We always have to look at what is presented. What is generally clear but not overly clear that stops it from being engaging. Which sure is subjective and a pretty hard threshold to meet, but what is presented in The Last Airbender is 103 minutes of dry, forced exposition. The world of the series is vast and rich and deep. The physics and mechanics, the culture and politics, the geography. The series had so much and went pretty in depth into a lot of it, but it had the time to do so. The first season alone is roughly 8 hours. A movie just doesn't have that much time. Even at a longish movie, at an hour and 43 minutes, we just physically don't have enough time to cover as much as the show did. But M wanted that world. He wanted to go that far, he wanted to go that deep, and he wanted it to be that big. So then he took the main elements of the big story being the Fire Lord trying to take over the world and Aang being the guy to stop it. He just took the elements of that main story and cut and pasted them into a 103-minute long montage that you could more or less follow in continuity. And that's what we get. a montage of the series. But this is what bugs me. Why? Why is this a good idea? Shyamalan aside, no writer could take that prompt and make an emotionally engaging film with it. There's just way too much, and nothing in the world has anything to do with a character that I can connect with. You had it right focusing on Aang's fear and struggle to accept his role as the Avatar. That was a good idea! Why didn't you throw out everything else and just start there? It's because it would have made some fans mad, and thus is the cyclical trap of writing for an audience. That topic to be continued in another place and time. So since he wanted that big, vast, deep world, every scene is a new and unfamiliar place we haven't ever seen before. And then we have to take the time to tell the audience where we are and why it's significant to the plot. Cut to the next scene, repeat. And because we have to tell the audience so much, guess what this directly affects? Almost every line in this film is exposition, and as a result, lines and conversations sound forced and unnatural, because M is trying to be as efficient as he can.
When he showed up, it was his father he was to fight.
That's right.
He would not fight his father.
Once, a long time ago, the spirit world kept balance over us.
What is the spirit world, Grandma?
How'd you get all the way out here?
I ran away from home. We got in a storm. We were forced under the water of the ocean.
Nobody actually talks like this IRL. M's trying to tell us as much as he can about the world and plot while still maintaining the appearance of a conversation. It's not even good exposition. We've talked about how telling characters unaware of the situation comes off natural. But when a character tells another character something that they already know but is reiterating it for the audience, it typically comes off flat because unless it's necessary for the character to hear it again, we know he knows, so now we're the only ones who don't, and it feels like it's talking to us and we are then aware that we're watching a movie again. This trope is referred to as you know. This movie is riddled with this type of exposition. Zhao literally says twice,
As you know.
No, I don't! Admittedly though, the one where he's being a douche to Zuko comes off pretty well, because there's reasoning and character behind it. But this is where I start sympathizing with the actors. I'm not gonna say these actors are fantastic, or even good, but outside of it all being exposition, this is just bad writing.
It is my strong belief that he is traveling to the Northern Water Tribe. I believe the child Avatar has only knowledge of his birth element air. I believe he is trying to learn in the discipline of water.
To get your airbending tattoos, you have to meditate for long periods of time without losing focus. Some of the great monks can meditate for 4 days.
How is one supposed to convincingly deliver these awkward, soulless lines? And what's with that last one? Why in the Taco Bell down the street do I even need to know that? Is it even from the show? It's exposition for exposition's sake. Keep in mind that directing actors is just as important to being a good actor.
Good. One more like that.
These are shots that M said yes. That's exactly the performance I was looking for. I really don't want to hate M. But what you doing, man? He's an innovator, guys. Van Gogh wasn't accepted in his time either. I used to sympathize with him. I was like, hey man, we all make bad movies. You just gotta learn from it and make a better movie next time. And like I said, no one can make a good movie from the prompt of telling the entire story of the show. But then there's things in this movie. Specific, confusing, utterly pretentious, and aggravating choices that no one can take the blame for other than Minaj Neliatu Shyamalan. Why in the cumulonimbus clouds that are above my house right now did he make the firebenders need a source of fire? It served no story point. I guess it showed Iroh as a more powerful bender, but is nerfing the entire force of the antagonist the only way to do that? And this cinematography. We all know you're trying to show us the Fire Lord's power by having him in focus, but literally, for this whole conversation, we get the back of various body parts of the Fire Lord. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but for the 8 years that we were watching it, I was into it. Yeah, give me that shoulder. Look at that ring. I don't care if it's more like the way Eastern cultures would pronounce these names, which, honestly, I'm skeptical because it's clear that Brian and Mike have significantly more knowledge and respect for these cultures. But who are you making this movie for? You make the story the exact same. You even include Momo, which probably was a really expensive service to the fans as he adds nothing to the movie. And yet the characters, the reason through which we love and connect to this story, you just change their names. Who isn't gonna get upset? And lastly, the random contradictory philosophical themes that are 100% M. Anybody else notice these lines here?
With his mastery of the 4 elements, he will begin to change hearts.
Mom, can you hear me? I knew you were real.
The Fire Nation is too powerful to worry about children's superstitions, General Eero.
It's time we show the Fire Nation that we believe in our beliefs as much as they believe in theirs.
What? I don't know what movie M was trying to make. He sticks religiously to the offense of the show. Then he takes liberties with the mechanics of the show. And then he interjects his own philosophical mumbo-jumbo that conflicts with what we know about the show and even what's presented in this movie. The Avatar's existence isn't in question. This is a historical figure and mechanic of the world that everyone knows. No one should have to question whether he existed or not. Zhao, why are you killing this fish if you believe it's a children's superstition? Spirits, again, are not in question here. They constantly interact and collide with these people's everyday existence. And what are you even talking about, Yue? What beliefs? Oh, vey. Like, how do you believe in all these people who are magically bending the elements without believing in the spirits? And belief, like, that's not even a central theme of the show. Or a theme at all, for that matter. Why stick to the show if you're gonna change the themes? So that's basically it. The time that's allotted in the movie forced M to choose what was more important to him. A big, vast, rich world, or appealing characters that the audience can connect with. He went with the world if that wasn't already clear. So then there's nothing to relate to, nothing to care about, and a lot to cry about. So what do you guys think? Personally, I don't think it matters who was writing it. I don't think they would have really told a good story if they were following Aang and Sokka and Katara. I think they should have followed like someone else that we didn't know that well in the world. Like, what if they followed Haru? Like, that would have been cool. We don't really know him at all, so like you could have just built who this character was and like we could have emotionally engaged to that, and then you could have sort of like met up with like parallels that we knew in the show, and then we would have been like, God, that's so awesome. Like, you could have thrown out so much extra stuff like the spirit world and just like Zuko and his mom's, that picture is so weird. Like, he kept throwing all these things in from the show that just kept building up and building up and building up. But if you just like threw that away, kept like the mechanics of the world, then we would have had time to really connect to one character. That's just what I think. But yeah, just let us know in the comments. And this format, we're not always going to do this format. It's just me and Austin are kind of separated locationally right now. Next week, he'll actually be doing one by himself. Last time I talked to him, he said he was doing Super Mario Bros. Movie. The movie has a special place in his heart, so look forward to that. Comment, like, subscribe. Find us on MySpace. RuneScape. John.
You think this still fits?
I hope so.